more on these stories, Arise News Chief Correspondent John Cookson joins me now from London. John, good morning. John, we begin with Carlos Ghosn. How much of a surprise is it that he's been released?
Hey Idia, good morning to you. Lots of cracking business stories around today, and yes, Carlos Ghosn released in the last hour. It is a surprise in that his bail application was turned down twice. It was then granted yesterday, and what tends to happen in the Japanese legal system is if you don't confess to a crime, then to be released on bail is relatively unusual, and especially when the prosecution claimed that Carlos was going to be a flight risk. The judge, however, discounted that, and he has now been released on, as you say, $9 million bail, or $1 billion Japanese yen, and so he's going to spend the next few weeks, of course, working hard on his defense. It has to be said that he's always maintained his innocence on these what are in fact tax fraud charges. Earlier he said that they were meritless and unsubstantiated accusations made against him. I have to say, Idia, he must be thanking his very, very good lawyer, known locally as the Razor, Idia. His name is Junichiro Hironaka. And if you want to win a case in Japan, this is the man to have on board and to have as your defense. Well, the Razor pulled it off yet again. And even though the prosecution appealed, the judge turned that appeal down about the release. As I say, he's now going to be working in the next few weeks on getting his defense case together. He faces, if convicted, Idia, 15 years in jail. Idia.
Well, wow, 15 years is a long time. John, now can you tell us how much of a figure he was in the motor industry? Because it seems like so much has changed so fast.
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, many viewers will know him as a giant in the motor industry. He was responsible for bringing Renault and Nissan together in an alliance, and then brought Mitsubishi on board in 2016. Both Nissan and Mitsubishi let him go, to use that expression, as soon as these charges were made, and he was arrested. He had to stand down as chairman, and he actually resigned from Renault. But I mean, he's clearly a charismatic character with amazing business acumen. He was born to Lebanese parents in Brazil. I believe he has French nationality, and if he avoids jail, and as I say, he faces a jail term of 15 years if convicted, I'm sure he'll be not looking for a job for very long. I mean, he's clearly, a fantastic businessman. He made such a success of the industries that he captained in the motor industry. So a bright future lays ahead. There'll be book deals and all sorts of things as well. But that, of course, is he's got to face trial first. He's released on bail, so that's a hurdle achieved, but it's only a temporary basis. And although he has his freedom now, the charges against him seem to be pretty strong. And again, I repeat, he's always denied that he's got any guilt in respect of the charges. Idia.
Well, John, now to Brexit. Is there any progress in Brussels in trying to find a way around the Irish backstop issue?
Hey, Brexit back again. You know, I was in Hanoi last week, as you know, and it was fantastic to be avoiding Brexit. But here we are, back again, back on what is quite a busy story, actually, at the moment. Geoffrey Cox, the Attorney General, and Brexit Secretary Stephen Barclay are in Brussels at the moment trying to renegotiate just one line of the withdrawal agreement, which relates, as you say, to the Irish backstop. The backstop, just to remind ourselves, kicks in if there's no deal, a trade deal between the EU and the UK during the transition period. It's to keep the border with Ireland and Northern Ireland open, to keep the peace in that troubled land following the Good Friday Agreement back in the early 1990s. Incidentally, Idia, there was 3 letter bombs found in London yesterday, one at Heathrow, another at Waterloo Station in London, and then another at London City Airport. The one at Heathrow did actually burst into flames and cause a small fire. The others were safely disposed of, but those letter bombs had Irish, 2 of them had Irish postmarks, which is possibly, we don't know for sure, but a stark reminder of the continuing issues in Ireland. Possibly, we'll have to wait and see. So that might be a reminder to politicians that they're dealing with a very serious matter in respect to the backstop. So far, Cox and Barclay have made no progress with the EU officials on this matter. But as I've said to you, time and again in the last few months, it's the way of the EU that they put up a barrier, if you like, for a long time, and then at 59 minutes to midnight they suddenly cave in and blink first. So I'm sure that's what Theresa May is hoping for, because she's got to go back to Parliament with an amended deal, or the deal that was currently on the table, by March the 12th, which of course is next week. Idia.
Well, John, speaking of going back to Parliament, Theresa May lost the so-called meaningful vote on her deal in January by the biggest defeat ever in the history of British Parliament. Now, does she have the numbers this time?
Well, yes, she lost by 230 votes last time. An absolutely crushing defeat for a Prime Minister. And in normal times, she would have had to have resigned. However, we're not in normal times at the moment. And because the British Constitution is unwritten, then, some of these rules are fairly flexible. So that's why she's still in post at the moment. Latest statistics are that she will lose by 80 votes, but that's been done on the basis that the Cox and Barclay haven't come back from Brussels yet with something to put on the table regarding the backstop. So although experts are saying that she's 80 votes short, that's on the pretext that things stay as they are. But hopefully, for the government at least, for Cox and Barclay, they actually come back with something that is acceptable to MPs. So my own view is that she will get it through, maybe not this time, for the next so-called meaningful vote, possibly on a third attempt. Idia.
Well, John, with a no-deal Brexit still on the table, how is British business positioning itself for the possibility of this?
British business as a whole, of course, have been preparing for a couple of years now. And as far as the big companies are concerned, the big supermarket chains, for example, they have detailed plans in place for a no-deal Brexit and what that means. The companies that are finding slight difficulty because of the uncertainty of everything are the smaller companies that don't have deep pockets, and they can't put in the measures that the big corporations can. Car companies, for example, including Nissan, Honda, are all saying that they plan to make cuts in jobs in the case of a no-deal Brexit. But interestingly, the boss of the Bank of England, Mark Carney, the governor, who's been firmly pro-European in the last couple of years since this whole process began, came out yesterday and said that a no-deal Brexit may be only half as damaging as he warned 3 months ago. So he's softening his position. Just to remind ourselves that 3 months ago he said that the British economy would, within 3 years on a no-deal Brexit, fall by at least 5%. Well, he's halved that assessment now. So that's an interesting move from Carney. Idia.
Well, John, thanks so much for joining us to discuss this morning. Arise News chief correspondent there, John Cookson.